welcome back to episode 3 of One Step Further, where we take life circumstances, things that happen to you, whether they're things that you know or may not know, and go a little bit stepper in your life. I'm Justin Arnold. This is
Brett and Justen. What's up, guys?
Yeah, and today it's all about, things that I really don't like. Hopefully I don't offend anybody, but I hate when somebody says, I've had a bad day, had a bad month, had a bad year, can't wait to 2020. I think there's a perfect timing coming up with the next year. Those kinds of statements, because I look at it as like life and moments, and if you're going to take some bad moment, like a fight with a boss, a girlfriend, and then you're like, oh my God, that was such a bad day. But really it was like 5 minutes of your life, and you let it control and affect your entire day.
Heck yeah. So Justin asked me to do a quick synopsis of a chapter. I'm not reading the whole chapter, but I just want to share with you guys. This is a book.
Chapter 1.
It is called The Cure. What if God isn't who you think he is, and neither are you? So I'm reading this book. I just got connected with Open Door Mission to be a mentor from some guys going through that program. So if there's anyone looking to be a mentor for someone right now, I believe there are men at Open Door Mission who are looking for someone to mentor them through a 9-month program, and this is part of that program, going through the book with these guys. So I just read this morning, and I thought it was a good opening
Cool,
to
yeah.
what we're talking about today. So that's
Listen up, stay alert.
Yes. So I'm going to try to get through this. I'm not the best reader.
Yeah.
So circumstances, bad moments in our lives, and what can we do to move beyond them? So when you're young, the life ahead of you is pristine, a never open book. It has this intoxicating new book smell. If you just crack the cover, the pages are white and clean, and you absolutely know there's a grand story ahead. When you're very young, you could be a cowboy or ballerina. In the glory of your youth, you and your friends are dread pirates, wildly adored pop stars, superstar athletes, gallant knights, or a queen whose rule is just and kind. Later, the fantasies fade, but the dreams become more focused. Maybe you'll be the first human being on Mars, or the doctor who cures breast cancer. The story is whatever you want it to be, and you're still in the opening pages of your great novel. Though that the story will be great, you have a destiny, a purpose in this life. Some of those dreams are your own, it's true. But some of those dreams, those hopes of destiny, are from God. As we grow older, some of those dreams begin to fade, washed in pain, cynicism, and failure. The edges tatter, the thread goes bare, and sometimes the fabric falls away completely. Something unnamed repaints the horizon. The mundane, agonizing detail of life build and build like bricks. Soon we are too weary of wrestling with our everyday existence to entertain grand visions of destiny. Even our relationship with God, which seems so wonderfully beautiful and life-giving at first, dims. We don't stop walking, but we may as well. What toxin is this that can turn a wide-eyed dream into a grinding drudge? It's as if we all woke up one morning under a curse we couldn't shake. So even reading that is extremely, extremely powerful. Like it gets me really emotional because just everything that I've been through in my life. We're not gonna get into the detail too much today, but as a child we have these dreams, and as adults we often let our circumstances and moments in our life define who we are, and we let people and time control our destiny, and when we in fact have control over them by the decisions we make in those moments and moving beyond those moments.
Yeah, actually, that is a great point, because my daughter literally has unicorn everything, and she wants to see a unicorn so bad. And I just let her dream that, where some people would crush it. And it's correlating kind of this book. I got a surprise book that I put off for a year and just finally read and finished pretty quickly. The reason why I put it off, because it was a Tyler Perry book, so I was like, what's Tyler Perry got to tell me? But when you think about
Tyler
it,
Perry.
Yeah,
It's
I like
funny.
Tyler Perry too. The Medea movies are great, but I was blown away by the book. It was one of my clients gave it to me. She thought I'd find value in it, and I really didn't when she gave it to me. I was like, oh, cool. I was appreciative of the gift, but I read it, and it kind of talked about this. Like, his father was very abusive, controlling. He grew up poor. His mom, while he talks about his mom in a positive way in the book, he puts her on a pedestal, but he also talks kind of like, he doesn't use these words, but she was almost like a dream crusher. Play it safe. She grew up in the civil rights. Play it safe. Go get a job at the telephone company. Now, if he listened to all that, he would own, like, I think the largest TV studio, which is in Atlanta, Georgia, and be where he is at, donating tons and tons of money to charity and these things like that. So the thing is, it's like, parents. I'm a parent. You might be one day. Hopefully.
I have a dog.
He has a dog.
King.
The point is, we want to structure, but it's also like you don't want to crush. Let people dream big. Let them write out their goals. Something we've been working with our children is letting them not live in moments. I talk to my kids this regularly. It was a daily, but it's definitely a regularly thing. Like our kids get in fights. They get in fights all the time, and I think we could apply this as adults, because it's like when we let our brother, our sister, our husband, our boss, if they are the cause of whatever tension or aggression, control the mood for the rest of the day, that can affect and have a domino effect. For example, say you got in a fight with a girlfriend this morning and you brought it into this session.
I'm single.
You're trained. I'm just using hypothetical, and that energy was draining on me, and I've got like 20 other clients today. That could really affect things, and we got to be thinking about that. It's not just about, it's bigger. It's not just about us, but it's bigger than us, and that's kind of where I was going at it. Don't let that moment, those bad moments, control you. Don't let those moments, like Tyler Perry, like what this book's talking about, define you.
So what happens when you don't? There was a book that I read, Love and Respect by John Eldridge. It goes through the union between man and a woman in a God-centered relationship. But what that book talked about was the compounding effect of not addressing a problem. So what happens when you don't address, let's just say, the elephant in the room? How do you see that affecting your day-to-day in your future? Like, what does that look like?
So if you don't address the problem.
If you don't address those
things.
things.
That's a great question, and that's a great point. You have to address those situations definitely in a constructive manner, but how do you see that affecting? Like, how do you?
Yeah, how does that affect like relationships in the gym?
Then there's always that elephant in the room, and then it continues to build. So it's one of those things you have to address, and you have to have that relationship with somebody by building that to be able to bring that up, like with a wife or a husband or a close friend, because we're not here to always tell everyone. Good friends and people that you truly love, there's that constructive feedback. There's that tough love. There's that not telling you what you want, but what you need to hear. And I think there's a respect as long as you do it in a respectful way. You can't come at somebody.
Yeah.
But like we've done it with each other in our short-term relationship, and that's why we're here today on this podcast, because we even see that we have that respect. We'll call each other out, but we'll also, I think, bringing apart solutions if that's possible. So
yeah, I even reached out to him last week with something that's been it's just super deep, but for me is like cultivating meaningful relationships with people. And I was like, dude, Justin, this has been bothering me for so long, man. I'm like, I really like you, and I'm really appreciative of everything we're going through, but there's still something preventing me from like moving beyond this kind of barrier I created. So there's been like this elephant in the room for me, and I'm like, man, finally I gotta just let this out.
Yeah.
So when I did, he was like, Brett, I know how you feel. I was like, thank God. I'm so thankful that I brought that up, and he understands what I'm going through. So I think that's a good thing to share with you guys is like, don't ever count someone out for them to not know what you've been through. Like share those moments and what you're struggling with, because odds are they probably experienced something similar.
Yeah, and through these podcasts, we've kind of touched on some of it. I touched some deep stuff last week, and if I let my life story define me, if I let things in my childhood, define me, then if I would have said this is my life, then I wouldn't be where I'm at. I wouldn't have married who I married. I wouldn't have the children. I wouldn't be a gym owner, and I wouldn't be a trainer. I grew up with parents with 6 jobs between the two of them working, and that's what motivated me to learn about food and cooking at age 12. It could have gone a different route where we lived on process. It also taught me to like take more vacations, spend more time with my family. So I'm grateful for my situation. I'll give you a deep little story here. When I was about 5-6 years old, my babysitter burned our house down, and that was traumatic. It was a very abusive babysitter, and if I would have let that define me, which carried over into our family. Now, me and my brothers were all affected by that situation in very different ways, and it still shows to this day, because one of my brothers let that define him. Another brother let that kind of work through way he has relationships with adults. And where me, I'm like, I want to love everybody. And that's one of the things that goes back to what he texts me about. It's like, as men, it's looked at as weak to say I love you, or to hug, or to build solid, foundational, emotional, even cry time relationships. That's looked as weakness in our society. And I think this is what's holding us back as men. And sorry to kind of go off on a side route here for moments, but these are these moments we need to create to build better men. I think it's not weak, but strong to be able to tell another man you love him, and to hug him, and to listen to his life story. yeah, we can have beers, and yeah, we can rock it back, and yeah, we can watch football, and yeah, we can wrestle, and yeah, we can throw the weights in the room. That's cool too. But man, when we can like cry together, cheer together, and really be vulnerable together, that's where we can grow as individuals. And those are the moments that we're not letting happen because we're letting other things define us in our life.
Yeah, yeah. Even the expectations of what society calls men to be like, that's a huge roadblock, I think. And it's funny, like when you get men in a group and there's that one guy who just pours everything out on the table, everyone just lets it rip. It's awesome, but it just takes one person to kind of set the tone.
Yeah, and so to go back on that, in case you missed it, I said my babysitter burnt my house down. And just so you know, that's a true story. Mom was actually a firefighter. That was one of her jobs. She was a guidance counselor. She was a firefighter. She was working at the time, and the chief told her not to go on the call. That's how, talk about showing up to your own house. It's on fire, and your babysitter bringing her out looking like the savior hero. Come to find out, he was the one that did it. And there's deeper to that story. That story carries on, and I'll carry it on into these episodes because I don't want to go dive into too deep into like my story because that's not the point of this podcast. We're here to help you guys. But just so you know, everyone's got demons. Everyone's dealing with hell on a day-to-day basis. It's all your outlook and your perspective. So, and this is what I go back to my children when I say, look at the moments. Look at how you can positively impact and serve people during the day. And it always goes back to that. And because if you're letting something affect you and you're going to blame it on that, or you're going to continue to let that person control you. And we kind of talked about control last week. So don't let that, because man, you're going to be missing out on something greater.
Yeah, it's so funny, like Justin brought up Dean Graziosi today. And
I was like,
and I'm like, what?
Because he kept popping up in my YouTube videos I was watching, and I was like, who is this guy?
I know, he's been popping up in my, I like Dean, and I really didn't like him until I actually read one of his books. But he talked about life as a trampoline. This guy's jumping on a trampoline. If you know Dean, he's got this long hair, and he's like,
I saw that ad today.
Up and down
it was a great correlation. I was like, man, that made sense to me.
Yeah, but he's like, the harder you get pressed down into that trampoline, the deeper you go, the more force that is pressed upon you, the more force you have to project you forward. And I freaking love that because, like, people just complain and point fingers and don't want to own up to their bad decisions in life. And they say, oh, well, I grew up poor, or I don't have blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, like, that analogy of a spring, he's like, when you get pushed down harder, that is your energy that will spring you forward to push you above and beyond much farther than most people take their life because they haven't experienced that pain. So it's that pain and that is your fuel for success, and people don't recognize that. And I believe that's what that book is about.
Yeah, and definitely. And some things that we could challenge you this week is like, don't, like, if you see yourself saying, man, I just had a bad day, I want you to break down your 24-hour cycle and really, was it bad? I challenge you to find positivity and growth in everything. We look at things as happening for a reason. So say you got yelled at by your boss today or something, and why don't you break down on why instead of blaming them for being a mean boss? Break down the why. And I'm always about killing with kindness, killing with love, and come in that retrospect. And there's more tips to it, but those are things that, like, is the way you analyze the way you analyze your situations better, to be grateful even in those hard times, can really give you a different perspective moving forward, and then also propel you to a different point as well. So
yeah, I think that if that's the one takeaway today, it's like, whatever went wrong, just don't point the blame at you or anyone. Just sit down and walk through that process from start to finish and write it out. I think that's an awesome idea.
Yeah, and because I can't take credit for this. I can't remember who said it, but it was a quote that said, I don't call them bad days, I call them character building days.
Yeah.
And the point is, like, maybe that's what it is, and maybe you need to find yourself. I knew somebody that used to blame their boss for always yelling at them, and then we broke it down and found out, well, his boss would come by and notice that they weren't even doing any work. They're playing around. They're goofing on their phone. And I'm like, well, those aren't being productive. And I also look at this from a daily thing. You start to analyze yourself better. If you're not doing things daily, if you're not happy with your situation, if you're not doing things daily to improve on those situations, then you only have yourself to really blame. If you're sitting here playing 4 hours of video games, like, man, I'm poor. I hate my life situation. I got a bad deck of cards. I grew up poor. If you continually tell yourself that, you'll continually be that.
If you go out and lease a new vehicle and you can barely pay your rent, I mean, that's like, come on.
Trust me. I can speak for, like, trust me, I've been in these situations. That's why I can talk about these situations. And Brett, very familiar with these things. Like, we all want that stuff. And you can have it quicker as soon as you flip the script and be grateful for the life. And I think it's like, I've said this before, it's like you're 1 in a trillion chance of being born. So you are here for a purpose and for a reason, whether you believe in a God or you believe in a higher power or whatever. You are here. You are special and you are unique. So start being grateful for every single day. And I asked him a question last night. I texted him, and it was a pretty deep question. You mind if I bring that up, that late night text?
Maybe. No, go.
I asked him, what if you had 6 months to live? And I asked that. I heard something better. It's like, what if you only had today to die? I think that's too quick. I was like, whoa, you're for brains. But what if you had 6 months? Like, you know, he doesn't have to answer that.
I didn't have an answer. I was going. Actually, I was.
So
my
mine always
head was
goes
on my pillow.
Yeah, mine always goes back to the why, and this can evolve. And I give me free range for this to change and evolve. But it always goes back to I want to leave a legacy for my family. I want to leave them so, like, if I were to go, you know, in 6 months, that they'd be well taken care of. That they wouldn't have to worry about things like money, and that they would celebrate, you know, life and not be upset but excited, not that I'm dead, but excited to live another day and be grateful for that and know that they are going to be well taken care of. But I'd also want to live life, you know, build relationships like I'm doing. So that's kind of my perspective now, like to live life every day, build relationships, provide opportunities. We do this podcast for that very reason, is so that hopefully we can change maybe one life from these podcasts. And if you do that every day, man, just service, you know, you'll be paid back tenfold. And if you start living like in those moments where every moment's a good moment or a character building moment, it'll really change your perspective on life. And that's what we're getting at. So.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's some really successful entrepreneurs who use death as a motivator. And we all have a healthy, if you can have a healthy understanding of death and like, well, what would happen if I died in 6 months? Have I taken care of a will for my family? Do I have things set up for my kids and for my wife? And am I going to live today like I may be gone tomorrow? And to be honest with you, I would love to live like that more because you're going to be more intentional and think through things before you take action.
Yeah, and I like the 6 month. I've heard it's been said in the 24 hours, like I said earlier, but I think that's too short.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. 6 months gives you an idea, but don't be sad about it. Be excited that, hey, you had this many years. You or at least know your time frame. The one thing that we all have in common is we don't know when we're going to die. It could happen at any moment. So if you live life that way, 6 months time frame, you're going to live a more abundant life. You're going to be serving more. You're going to be loving more. As long as it's, you know, for others. I mean, and you'll get more stuff done because, like, especially if you have people to live for, like a wife, kids, parents, whoever, dog.
Dog.
You want that dog well taken care of in 6 months. So anyway, so that's our challenge. We're going to be wrapping it up here. But our challenge this week is definitely, like, you know, start. You know, I would love for you to have a whole 24-hour cycle. Let's do this. That where, one, you start, we talked about writing things, three things you're grateful for in the morning, but I want to go a step further. Try to be grateful for every single moment. Try not to get upset or get mad at anything for an entire day.
That's a great challenge. I'm gonna challenge that today. And before we get off, I definitely want to make sure we tie this back into some scripture because there's a scripture from Hebrews, and I can't remember the chapter, but it says that God disciplines us that we would partake in His holiness, and it's like the imagery of a diamond and the pressing of rock that you get this diamond at the end when you chip away and press rock into something that's beautiful. So it's like the pain and the discipline. It's not. It's meant to make us greater, and it's their opportunities. And I mean, it took a long time for me to change how I look at those things. So it's definitely a challenge, and I think.
Yeah, the faith challenge. Last week we asked you to open up a Bible, maybe read.
Yeah.
If you find a Bible plan. If you do not find a Bible plan, look for a Bible plan on that Bible app. And I challenge you to find a friend now. If you're doing a Bible plan, like him and I are doing something, and you can. What's cool about that is you can share notes. Again, if you're not just exploring faith, this is a cool way where you can see what other people are thinking. And if you're not praying, start praying. Start praying for your life. Start praying for your day. God kind of knows, but just start talking, have that conversation. If you don't know who you're talking to, just have a conversation with the universe. It'll make a difference. Because even when other people aren't there, He's always there. And when you don't believe in it, trust me, it helps. It's been huge in our lives.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for tuning in for episode 3. Make sure to tune in for episode 4. We'll try to get it out before the new year. But as always, share, like. Again, we're totally supported by you. So if you find somebody who can benefit from this, dish it out.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
See you next time.